Oh, hey buddy, how
Oh,
are you?
I went video because just for a minute I thought we could. But
Yeah, let me turn mine on. Hold on.
if you're in your bathrobe or something
No, I'm not.
with vomit stained bathrobe, I understand.
I have no idea if it's on right now, but I think it's on. Is it on?
I
Video?
don't
No, it's not.
no
Hold
no
on.
it's all right though. It's just like you'll say hello, but
No, no, I get it. I would love to do so. I don't know what button to push. I might not be able.
it's all right. We can stay on audio though. You can look at me.
Sure. Okay.
No, that ain't right. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah,
my
sure.
morning's crazy, but here we are now.
Well, I was surprised on a subsequent look through on your filmography
Okay.
as cinematographer, just how many of your projects that I'm familiar with. I remember seeing Medicine for Melancholy. Oh, there you
Yeah.
are. Oh, hey, there you are. On second thought, no, I'm kidding. We're if you're,
Lights up, so go ahead.
I'm just kidding. Wow, look at that. That's an art installation behind you.
Oh, it's some there's some plants. There's some
Yeah.
cactus.
This is we for those listening because we're already recording. Believe it or not, I
Okay.
might just leave it all in because it's a lot of fun. But we were just trying to get the video version of Skype going
There
so
you
we
go.
could look at each other. No, good looking guy. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Where are you?
This interview's been great. I've been flattered already. I'm in my dining room in my house in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. What neighborhood are
Yeah.
you? What neighborhood?
So I live in El Sereno, which is
Oh,
basically as far east as you can get while being still having the Los Angeles address, more or less. I
okay.
can walk out of LA from where I live.
Really?
I can. Yeah, it's just $3 away.
Oh wow. I may be there. I may be in LA in February. So
Okay.
I don't know.
Cool.
Planning season. So I saw Medicine for Melancholy like not long after it came out. I had been hearing about it on the because just by way of like the festival circuit and that it was one of these films that people were talking about. Then of course the myth of the American Sleepover, but California. So Alexia Rasmussen is I've been kind of friends with her
Oh wow,
for a long time.
she's great. Yeah, I remember her well.
Yeah,
Totally.
she's lovely. And but it was like it was way after that. And then she said, once I got to know her, then I went back and I looked at that film. So I watched that probably a couple of years ago. I don't remember. And
Sure.
then saw Bad Milo. That was great. And I want to talk to you about that because skipping way ahead to Tusk, those two are kind of
Yeah.
interesting. They work together as far out genre films. Tusk, of course, being directed by Kevin Smith, of course, and then your two films with subsequent films again
Very, yeah.
with Barry. Although I saw anything. Oh yeah, and then anything, which I did, that's great because I actually had on John Carroll Lynch and Timothy McNeil on my podcast as well.
Oh wow, amazing! I had no, that's really cool. Those are great people, obviously.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's just
Yeah.
like weird how small the world. How this. So it's really nice to bring you on after then.
Well, thank you very much. I'm obviously happy to be here, clearly, and happy to talk about all those movies. Beale Street is the one out now, but all those films
Well,
are
yes.
very dear to me.
And we'll definitely focus on Beale Street and
Well,
which I caught up with at the New York Film Festival.
oh, cool. I was there as well. I was there for the New York premiere. It's great. It's fun. I've
Yeah.
been in Harlem.
Well, I was ghettoized to the
Sure.
press industry screen. However, wait a minute. Did they have a press conference afterwards? I don't remember whether they had a press conference. They often will have press. I don't think they did that day, but I ended up going to see Barry. That's right. They did the public screening up at the Apollo, right?
The Apollo, exactly. Yeah, it's great. It's
Yeah,
just
I
amazing.
bet I would have loved to have gone up there to see it, but again, in the ghetto of press industry screenings at the Walter Reed, it's not a bad place to see it.
Not at all.
But I did go see him at what was the big talk he did during the New York Film Festival? He did a big talk with. Oh yeah, it was at the.
Yeah, Lincoln Center, I think.
Yeah, right. And I forget the academic, but he was an author and an academic who he spoke with, and it was a fantastic talk.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he had all these students in the audience, all these people that it was really all these young folks in the audience. It was really nice. Anyway.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. How did you begin your relationship with? I didn't read a lot into it, so I don't know. I honestly don't know. Did you go to school with him? How did you originally? Because he's obviously a very loyal guy.
Did. So it's funny. So Barry is from Miami, Florida. I'm from San Francisco, California. So from very different places in the country. We both ended up at Florida State University, which is in Tallahassee, Florida, for college, and specifically film school. Barry sort of happened upon it. I had been sort of pursuing sort of short film, experimental filmmaking in high school years. And but we both just sort of found each other there, and very quickly, within the first sort of 2 weeks of class, sprang up a quick friendship that has now lasted 20 some years. Which is amazing, but it just happened, quite happenstancely in that regard. And, it's I feel very lucky to have found someone that, not only am I very close friends with, but have such a great collaborative relationship as well. So it's, it's a great one. But so we met there, and I think, I think we made about 4 or 5 short films within the curriculum. And I think after the first 2, we started collaborating, basically. And at that point, haven't really stopped. So, it's a relationship I feel quite lucky to have, like I said, but, something that I feel has been sort of, great to learn this craft together in many ways. And that's really what it's been. I knew a little bit about filmmaking, before I arrived. He knew maybe, knew about that he was interested in it, but I'm not sure how much he knew other than that. And so we both got to learn this thing together. And I think that's a big part of why we work together so well. It's because it just sort of there's a bedrock of education and history, film history. I mean, that we sort of experience, simultaneously. Yeah.
Well, he's obviously, I mean, I don't know how much it plays into it, but it appears that he's pretty loyal too, like that he would be.
Yeah,
it's one way, obviously, because you've worked with just about you're kind of just indiscriminate. You seem to be somewhat indiscriminate, but no, I'm kidding, right? Just kidding.
Well, that's the nature of being a DP, right? You have to keep working.
Yeah, I know. I'm just joking.
Of course.
And also, I imagine that every time you revisit, I mean, there was probably a longer lag time between
Medicine
between Moonlight than there was between Moonlight and Beale Street. But you can bring so much with you that you've learned and evolved as a photographer, as a storyteller in your own right.
Totally. No, I mean, I joke a little bit sometimes and say that for each project I have with Barry, we have about a 20-year pre-production period, that'll expand from here on forward as well. Because we get to talk about projects very far in advance. I mean, with Moonlight, I think I heard about Moonlight probably, 2.5, 3 years before we started shooting it. And so it was something that I sort of was processing for a long, long time. Clearly he was as well, but, we get to, just as friends as well, get to go have dinner one night, chat a little bit about it, propose some ideas, and then come back 6 months later with, after those ideas and sort of rumbled around our brains for quite a long time. And I think it's that sort of longevity, long-term, development process, visually speaking, specifically, that I think is something that I feel very lucky to have, like I said already, but just sort of really works for us. We don't never feel like these ideas are just forced upon, a quick pre-production process, which, in the independent film world anyway, can be something like, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, which is a pretty quick amount of time when you think about it. But with Barry, we get to sort of have these chats, ongoing for months or years at the time.
Yeah. It seems like because the Moonlight was broken into these 3 segments that and they had distinct, right? Each one sort of, if I remember correctly, I watched it not that long ago again, but was it more? Does that make it more complicated or more of a challenge? Because this is essentially, I only saw Beale Street once, but it doesn't occur to me that there were whole different sort of looks within one film. Like it was.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's interesting. For Moonlight, I mean, each project is different, as you can imagine.
Three different
for Moonlight,
time periods.
While there's these three chapters, and each of them seem to be around, I'm not sure the minute count, but I want to say it's something like 30-some minutes apiece. We really wanted to make sure the film didn't feel like three short films more than anything else. And we wanted to make sure that there was a cohesiveness to each of to them all that felt like they belonged in the same story.
Visually, are you speaking about, or just overall?
So, just overall. I mean, while we did do different techniques in each chapter, there's bits and pieces of technique of the same technique in each of them as well, and so. Mm-hmm. Certain stories seem to sort of want different things from us. Like the Chiron chapter in the middle, for example. As he's a teenager, he's going through some sort of turbulent, times in his life, as is often the case in that age group. And I feel like we sort of use camera movement techniques, lighting techniques that sort of emphasize that. Mm-hmm. And then, within the Black chapter, the third chapter in the story. There's a bit more of a structure to him, obviously physically, but also sort of emotionally, where he sort of, put up this wall and things like that. And so the camera seemed to sort of want to be more stable and sort of static at times. So, but each of, like I said, each of those techniques is also in each of the stories as well. And so, it was about blending them while trying to make sure we were sort of we were paying attention to character in each of those chapters. Blending them was also sort of on our mind as well. So it was a bit of a mix. Beale Street is sort of told in two tenses. I mean, there's the tense of Fonny in prison, and then there's the tense of Fonny and Tish falling in love. And in each of those two chapters as well, we used different techniques to sort of emphasize that. In the sort of past tense with them falling in love, the camera sort of has these sort of graceful, sort of romantic movements at times, and the lighting can kind of take on some sort of like iconic romantic techniques. And then in the sort of what I guess we call the present tense, which is the Fonny in prison, the camera seems to be a bit more structured at times as well. So blending, but blending is always part of Barry and I's sort of world a little bit. We don't tend to sort of make rules for ourselves, for example. Neither one of us, I think, sort of sticks to that. So while we push different sort of techniques in different ways, there's cheating here and there, of course.
It really feels like you're kind of trying to achieve an emotional story first and foremost. That's the thing that you're most interested in.
For sure.
And then everything else is just sort of frosting in a way, which is really nice to hear.
It's funny. This is something that I think I've learned with working with Barry specifically, and is maybe different than when I'm working with other directors. Is he and I really mostly talk about character, less so narrative, and I think that's sort of a distinction that has really worked for us. I mean, not to make it logical or not, but the thought I have about it is, Barry's written the screenplay already. It's as it is, it's a piece of work that's going to tell a beginning and then come to an end at some point. The actors are going to deliver those lines, and we're going to see them move on screen to sort of, present the descriptive narrative structure of the piece. For camera-wise and lighting and movement and things like that, what we've seemed to sort of feel like is maybe more valuable for us is having conversations and paying much more close attention to a character's perspective, what the character personally is feeling inside emotionally, to your point a moment ago. It's those sort of indicators for us that seem to be how we end up making choices with what we have at our disposal for my department, which is lighting and camera.
So, how does the collaboration work then? Are you guys looking at how does it start before? How far beforehand? Like when you're sitting down and you're kind of chatting about it, or you're looking at other films
It's interesting for Beale Street. I don't know. I don't think we ever sat down to watch movies together. I mean, we've sort of done that for the last 17, 18 years. So we've seen as many movies as maybe.
But also just hanging out also, right?
Yeah, just hanging out, exactly. So a lot of our conversations on this film had to do with still photography from the 70s specifically, and then even more specifically, still photography from Harlem. And so we try to get really in depth and dig deep into the history of the neighborhood, of the city at large, and try to take some of the our own personal voices and combine that with historically some of the images what we're wanting to reference or were inspiring to us, which mostly came from still photography. But working with Barry, is not unlike probably a lot of other sort of processes where you're sitting down, you're showing imagery or music or a movie or whatever it might be, and having conversations as to how they might relate to the project specifically in certain ways. And so that's definitely how we worked on Moonlight and continue to work on with Beale Street Could Talk as well. And then going forward from there, you're breaking the script down, you're shot listing, you're going to locations together and having the locations sort of help you, inspire you to make a certain kind of choice. Both Barry and I think react really well to the locations. I think that's something we've always done from the beginning of our relationship in film school was, walking into a space and feeling like if it works for the film, letting the space inspire us and sort of help us make some certain choices. With Miami, with Moonlight, that was definitely the case.
Sure.
With how light played and how color plays. But the same can be said for Beale Street Could Talk as well. I mean, the color palette of the rooms and, all kinds of different things. And specifically for me, about how light played in New York, it's so unique and so different than anywhere else in the country. Having that sort of find its way into the choices that we were making was, really, really important for us. So, so location's a big deal for us, and I think that's something that I really enjoyed that part of the process working with Barry is spending time in places and walking around neighborhoods and streets and just letting it also sort of soak in a little bit.
You shot on the streets of New York?
Yeah, I mean, so we shot the whole film. Obviously, narratively takes place, in New York.
Sure.
In New York, with exception of obviously the Puerto Rico section of the film, which was shot in the Dominican Republic, actually, all to do with
once again, the Dominican Republic stands in for Puerto Rico. Well, there was a storm or something, some weather system happened. I don't know. They say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
was that really why you had to shoot in Dominican Republic, DR?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It was really okay. I shouldn't joke about it, I guess.
Right.
I'm not like a president. Let's see.
But yeah, anyway, but the rest of the film was shot all in New York, with the exception of one scene, which is the end of the movie, which was shot in Los Angeles. That was a pickup shoot in the end. It's a little the film ends actually differently than the book does, and I think the film is the film, the book is a book. But for us, we sort of felt like we needed this extra scene. We ended up shooting in Los Angeles a few months later.
Is there is there a lighting designer per se, or is that you as well?
Well, I mean, there's a position called a gaffer that sort of works underneath me, which is sort of the person in charge of the lighting departments.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
It's a tree sort of, obviously,
pyramid?
as stems down from producers, directors, and there's a little.
I think they call that a pyramid. I'm not sure.
Sure, exactly, a pyramid. So
but a tree is a far more beautiful and living, and it's a nicer image, I guess.
Okay, fine. Yeah, pyramid. So, but yeah, so like he and I worked together. Kiva Knight is his name, who is a really talented guy. He did Moonlight with me and has done several other projects as well with me.
Okay.
And that was sort of our worlds.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, so okay. So are you actually the on the camera, or are you like also sort of standing by?
So yeah, I mean, it depends. I did operate a few shots in the film, but for the most part, we had a great crew that
of course.
There's within the crew, there's things called camera operators, and they work with me in the same way that I work with Kiva, the gaffer. To sort of that pyramid again kind of comes down, and I'm sort of dictating visual choices at large, with obviously the production designer and the costume designer as well, but all the different choices as to how the camera plays and moves, and
lenses
choices, shooting format choices, how lighting affects the scene with quality of light, color of light, all that stuff. That's sort of my sphere of my world existing in.
Has it changed though as the size of the production grows?
Yeah, I mean, the difference between Moonlight, let's say, for example, and if Beale Street Could Talk, was, a relatively large difference in scale. And the job shifts a little bit. Yeah, it becomes much more, a bit more managerial, as that's always the case. Right?
Absolutely. Right.
But also, too, you get much more creative freedom, too, as well. You obviously now at your disposal are more tools, more techniques that maybe you couldn't necessarily financially afford on a smaller scale production, or now all of a sudden afforded to you. So, there's positives and negatives. Bigger machines move a little slowly at times, but then you get to do more things. So it's you get to take what you can, and clearly the producers, as they all are very wise, men and women, sort of help to dictate what budget is appropriate for what project and things like that.
Very good. So now flashing back to last February, when there was, or 2 Februaries ago, excuse me, it was at the Oscars in 2017, right? There was a bit of where you guys won the best picture.
We did.
After a kerfuffle that occurred, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So you were there?
I was there, yeah, because I was nominated for cinematography as well, which was amazing, of course.
Did you?
Yeah, so I was there.
You were nominated. You didn't win that year?
Say that again, sorry?
You didn't win that year?
I did not. No, I've never won an Academy
Award.
It's not.
Well, it's okay. I mean, I think the award as we speak. Today is January 10th, in about 12 days, you may indeed be nominated again, and hopefully maybe there'll be an opportunity. I'm sure you're a young guy, so. But I guess so. What to describe the events? Because I was at home watching this unbelievable thing.
Well,
so you were in that gaggle of people.
Say again,
were you in that gaggle of people that ran up to the stage at the last second and took La La Land's, or wasn't it La La Land?
It was La La Land, exactly. Yeah. It was amazing. It was. I mean, my memory of it is obviously very personal.
Sure.
And it may be different from anybody else's. But I think what we all shared, both in the audience and on stage and on television at home, was a sort of a gobsmacked moment where it was sort of confusing, shocking. All those things were running through, I think, probably everyone's mind and hearts at the time, including mine. So, but it was interesting. When I got on stage, the first person I saw actually was Lena Sandgren, who was the cinematographer for La La Land and had just won the Academy Award for that as well. And I remember going up to him and just giving him a big hug. And he also gave me a big hug as well. And it was sort of this moment for me, at least in my personal experience with it all, was just a feeling of that sort of filmmaker camaraderie of like, this is crazy. I don't know what to say about it all, but happy to be on the stage with you at this very moment. And that's my memory of it all.
Yeah, you got 1 billion people watching, and it's an enormous event that is like it's like this global-sized moment.
Yeah,
that you're all involved with. Yeah, it's sort of outsized. It's so it's like you're sharing this thing. It's pretty significant. It almost makes up for the the loss. Now, what was that cinematographer's name again? I need to.
His name is Linus Sandgren.
That's who I need to reach out to here, Linus. No, I need to bring. No, that would be great to bring him on too.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I mean, I'm a big fan of his work. He shot First Man this year as well. Which
wow.
Cool.
Okay.
I think he's a really talented guy. And a really cool person.
Is there a kind of a sort of a camaraderie among you, or are you guys do you share or know do you know a lot of your contemporaries? Like I had on Sam Green on the show, and he was not Sam Green, Sam
Levy.
Sam Levy. Let me rephrase so I don't I don't have to go out of my way to make enemies here. So I had
no worries. No, I
had Sam
met
Levy
Sam
on
briefly. Sam works with a colorist named Alex Bickle.
Right. Okay.
Alex is one I work with as well. So we share sort of certain collaborators within our worlds. I'm a big fan of Sam's work, and I think it's interesting. I have a theory about cinematographers. Because we're basically, our job so often is to, we're asked to come into a director's creative process, and we are. We sort of walk into their worlds, whether their personal worlds like it was with Moonlight, or just their creative and collaborative worlds as it is with every director. And you have to sort of effortlessly find your way into them, and I think that trait is rather unique, and something I think I love. It's my favorite part of the job in many ways, to be honest with you. Is sort of walking in and being into spaces, into cultures, into worlds that maybe I'm not from or don't know or I'm not super familiar with, and then be asked to collaborate with people within it.
Sure.
And I think that sort of trait that we all, I think, as cinematographers share with amongst each other and ourselves is sort of, I think, something that also creates this sort of bond with all of us as well. And I think there's a real shared and sharing part of each of us that I think is really wonderful and really appreciate and happy to sort of involve myself within. So yeah, there's I think, for example, this year, with all the cinematographers that are being discussed within this awarded season stuff, I'm a fan of all of them.
Yeah, it's a good year,
and I really appreciate knowing some of them, and I hope to get to know more of them, of course. But yeah, no, I'm just sort of it's a real sort of camaraderie. I think that's how I feel about it, and I think the people that I know within it all feel the same way.
Rachel Morrison.
Yeah, no, totally. I know Rachel well. I've known Rachel, I think I met Rachel, I want to say like 6 years ago. We both come from a very similar place within, American independent filmmaking.
Right.
And I think, spent many years doing films, that were sort of, smaller budgeted, smaller resourced. We would find each other at Sundance often and things like that. So I think we come from quite similar sort of filmmaking backgrounds, and my God, it's just inspiring and amazing to sort of see what she's up to now. It's great. Yeah,
but also I think she went to the same summer camp that I went to, but I don't know if yeah, I don't know if we overlap. But I was trying to get in touch. Maybe you can. I can send you maybe I can send you a note or something, and you can forward it, because I would be interested also. I mean, just because of that other connection as well, but also being a fan of her work.
Yeah, it's great, of course.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I just want to. I mean, in the time we have left, I don't know what your time is like. We've been on for a half hour, and I do want.
Whatever. No rush.
Okay, great. Because I'm interested in some of your other collaborations. I like this other thing. You also seem to have a. I don't know, it appears that you also enjoy the genre film.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Or at least films that are kind of bordering on genre and experimental, or filmmakers that do that. Like,
Yeah.
Because he also, I see, also shot Yoga Hosers.
That's Kevin Smith.
That's Kevin as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you did two films with
Kevin, exactly.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think for me, it's so often mostly about the filmmakers that I'm interested in.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
The projects that sort of they're interested in sometimes, just happen upon. So for Kevin, for example, I was, flattered to be asked if I wanted to sort of join the Tusk film.
Which I really like that. I like that one. I really like Tusk. I mean, I found it very entertaining. Very. I don't know. I don't know anybody else who says that. Although I know he has an. Well, no. I outside of his legions of
Of course.
dedicated followers. There's them,
Yeah.
and then there's
Yes.
the people that I run around with who are by and large not part of the first group. But
Yeah.
when I saw that at I forget what festival. It might have been South by Southwest. I can't remember. But I just remember really just enjoying. I just thought it was so clever, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, I'm very proud to have been involved in that film, honestly. And working with Kevin specifically was really, really lovely. I think he's just a really wonderful man. Period. Such a sharing person and a giving person, and was really up for the collaboration part of it all. I think someone who has his resume has every right to sort of be somewhat of a dictator, in the collaborative process. And Kevin was the opposite of that, and was very welcoming in every aspect of the filmmaking process to everyone that was involved. So, I can't say enough nice things about Kevin. I really loved the chance to work with him, and was really flattered to be asked.
How did he come across? How did he find out about you? Did he see something you did, or did he see Bad Milo or something?
I don't know the answer to that, to be perfectly honest. I got a call from a producer one morning asking if I wanted to be involved, and
nice.
I sort of jumped in.
I bet he saw Bad Milo or something. Maybe he saw Bad Milo.
Maybe it was that. Yeah, absolutely.
What do I know?
Yeah, I don't know. I really honestly don't know. And Bad Milo was the same with
But he had to have seen it.
I would hope so. Both films, I think for me, while I'm now I think maybe more known for some like a film like Moonlight,
right?
But those films were highly influential, honestly, into abilities and techniques and learning things on those films that were definitely applied to Moonlight in some respects. And that's sort of, I think, part and parcel for being a filmmaker generally, is you learn from projects prior and you apply those things to films in the future. And that's just, those films, while they sound strange to have someone like me be a part of them, I really love them, and I'm not necessarily a big genre guy. I wouldn't ever categorize myself that way. But it was more just the people involved and the opportunity to express myself visually in those films. I mean, that was a time in my career too where I was basically shooting a lot of independent films, small, lower budgeted stuff,
right?
And the sort of folks that I was knew in the world and were making great films. A lot of them were, films of, not to be critical of them at all, because I'm a fan of so many of the filmmakers that I'm sort of talking about now, but the idea that it's largely just people in kitchens talking, and they're doing sort of dialogue scenes that seem to last for 90 minutes. And,
right.
Again, don't mean to disregard them because a lot of them are fantastic, of course.
Of course.
But I was also, as a cinematographer, sort of a little bit starved in that time, and looking for films that were going to give me some license visually to be a bit more expressive, and wanted that from me. And so I think that was sort of a little bit about why I was very curious and excited to sort of play a role in those films. And learn from that. I mean, I think I could only, when you're shooting sort of these sort of, small dramatic films, I wasn't learning a lot anymore. I realized I kind of needed to stretch my wings a bit and branch out aesthetically and learn from that. And I sort of recognized that within myself, that I was sort of needing that a little bit. And, hence those other films.
What is this movie, The Moment? I only ask because I'm literally writing something for Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Oh, lovely! Oh, she's great.
I mean, if that's another, obviously another conversation, but she is such a huge talent, and I'm just such. I mean, this is, just perfect for her, the role. What was she like to work with?
I found her to be wonderful, honestly. Someone who has been around and has made some fantastic work. As you might imagine, they come very prepared, and that was definitely the case with Jennifer.
Right.
She was every day very willing and ready to dig in and be a great collaborator. So it was a while ago, but my memory of it was that it was it was a very positive experience, and she was wonderful.
Interesting. Yeah, I got to try to locate that film. I'm interested in seeing it.
Sure. Yeah.
Were there were there any other filmmakers who you felt you've especially connected with in terms of, that were obviously you guys functioned really well together?
Yeah, I mean, I really loved working with Peter Sattler on Camp X-Ray. That was something that I remember very well, and it's a film with Kristen Stewart and Payne Mahdi that I really, really loved and loved making it, and again, very proud to be involved with it. And it was, aesthetically something I was really, really excited about, and very proud to have sort of helped create. That's a film that was fun. I didn't know Peter before that film at all, so it was sort of an out of the blue start from zero sort of friendship and collaborative process. But I think it became evident to both of us quite quickly that we shared a lot of interest aesthetically and storytelling wise, and the kind of films we wanted to be involved with and all that kind of stuff. And so, for me, Peter was great. Scott Coffey and I made a film called Adult World a couple years earlier with Emma Roberts, which was great as well. Again, someone that I didn't know beforehand at all, and fell into a very quick and meaningful friendship and collaborative process again. So, yeah, it's wonderful being a cinematographer. Really, it's one of my favorite parts about the job is you get to sort of have these, very meaningful and quick and out of the blue relationships with people that you get to, again, create with. And, it's something that I really appreciate and feel very, flattered to be asked oftentimes, to be honest, to come in and involve myself on these films. So,
I mean, I think in my conversation with Sam, he pretty much expressed the same feelings. I asked him about it, and naturally you feel like the closest perhaps role after a director is the director of photography or the cinematographer, and so it's natural to wonder because so many cinematographers have directed, like if that's and I also, who else was I talking to? Might have been also...
Ed Laxton.
Thank you. Okay.
No problem.
Horrible. He did my show, too, and it's,
Oh, Ed's great.
Yeah, that was a dream. That was incredible. He's going to have to come back on, I think, because... But, yeah,
his resume is just, out of control.
It is.
Every film he's done, and he's done many of them that are just iconic.
He's like the Zelig also of cinematographers. He just happened to be, in the right place at the right time at a number of occasions.
Yeah, well, it's part of the job in many ways. Call it luck or call it, There's a science to it as well. You have to put yourself in these positions.
That's right.
And find yourself in the right places and with the right people and engage with them in the right way. And all of a sudden, things can change in your life quite dramatically. And I think, I don't know Ed very, very well, but we know each other a little bit. And, I think Ed's just this, wonderful collaborative partner. And I can see why everyone he met, and, whether it was Todd Haynes or many other filmmakers he worked with, but I can see why immediately you'd want to engage and want to start a collaborative process with. And, again, it's one of the best parts of being a cinematographer is those relationships and being asked in that way.
I only asked him about one. I said he only expressed Ed. This is Ed. Mm-hmm. He said he only had one instance where he really had a really bad experience with one filmmaker. Where
really?
It just was total disaster in their initial conversations, and the chemistry just wasn't right. And so I said, "Well, name names," and he actually did. You have to listen to it on the. I can't mention
where he can name names.
Yeah, I can't mention Darren Aronofsky's name because it wouldn't be right. But if I were to, I would, it would be, I would mention Darren Aronofsky, but I can't.
You can't. I got it.
Who was a brilliant filmmaker, and I was part of the group that did actually love Mother. But anyway, Well, so you're moving on to other things, but you must be very excited at the prospects of all the accolades. I mean, I know it's not really the true litmus for.
Sure.
But it's important. It's important for films like Beale Street Could Talk to get out there and for as many people as possible to see it. I mean, we're working against a lot of big budget comic book superhero movies, and this movie is great when more people can see it.
Well, and thank you to you, obviously, to help in that process. But
exactly.
I think we are very proud of the film, as you might imagine, and I think all the accolade discussions around it are, for me anyway, they begin as very flattering. I think for me, the most meaningful part of that, all of it is just sort of an indication that the work is reaching people and people are engaging with it. And it's, for how I think about it, from, the kind of person I am, I think it's sort of it's an indication that I should get up on Monday and go back to work,
right.
more than anything else. It's very flattering to be involved, and it's an honor to be mentioned in the names that are, being talked about. But if anything tangible comes around, it's really just, like I said, an indication to continue and to get back to work and help us all keep telling these stories. I mean, that's how I feel about it. It's none of us, I think, make movies or make films or make art generally to win awards, but they can be helpful in our careers, of course. To be an indicator of the engagement that you're putting out there into the world, and just to remind ourselves to not stop and get back to work whenever possible.
Well put. Well, thank you very much. This, I thought, went very well. Thanks for putting up with my mishigas.
Oh, not at all. It was a real pleasure. Thank you for having me, Adam, of course, and anytime. I'd love to talk to you. Yeah,
let's do it again. And if you're in New York, please do, let me know. We could always do another one of these if you're coming through the city.
It'll be fun. Perfect, buddy. All right.
Okay.
Well, enjoy your night. Thanks for sticking up, and I'll talk to you soon.